Okay, good evening. Welcome to our William C. Powers keynote lecture, sponsored by the Center for the Study of Race and Democracy at the LBJ School of Public Affairs. My name is Peniel Joseph, and I am the Barbara Jordan Chair in Political Values and Ethics, and the Professor of History and the Founding Director of the Center for the Study of Race and Democracy, as well as Associate Dean for Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion here. William C. Powers, I want to just explain why this series is so special. William C. Powers was the 28th president of the University of Texas at Austin. He was the second longest president at UT. He served from 2006 to 2015. It was under President Powers that the Division for Diversity and Community Engagement was launched. President Powers had a deep commitment to equity, inclusion, and diversity on UT's campus. Obviously, we are still imperfect, but without President Powers, we wouldn't be as far along as we are in confronting these challenging issues. I want to thank Jeannie and Mickey Klein, who are not here, for providing us the resources to bring in really nationally recognized thought leaders in the arena of equity, diversity, inclusion. That being said, I just want to say a few thank yous before introducing Dr. Sean Harper. Thank you to Mickey and Jeannie Klein again. So even though they're not here, people can tell and testify that we thank them. I want to thank Dean J.R. DeShazo, who is starting his second year as Dean of the LBJ School and has really walked the talk in terms of his commitment to equity and inclusion, justice and diversity here at the LBJ School of Public Affairs. I want to thank Esteban Delgado, the Director of Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion, who has really gone above and beyond the call of duty in so many facets this year. I want to thank Tori, Beverly, the whole communications team for all that they do to support faculty, staff, and students in the work that we're engaged in. I want to give a special thanks to Shantae Thompson, who's the Senior Program Administrator at the Center for the Study of Race and Democracy, without whom nothing gets done. Without whom nothing gets done. So all those people should really be thanked, and they give us the wings to fly in the way that we do. So thank you. Okay, so now here's the fun part. This is my extreme pleasure to introduce Dr. Sean Harper, who is one of the world's leading, if not the leading expert on not just equity and race in education, but along multiple fields of leadership, business, athletics and sports, just culture. When we think about what Dr. Harper has done with his Center for Racial Equity at the University of Southern California, he's made that center into one of the world's leading incubators for justice, equity, inclusion across multiple sectors in the United States and globally, which is no mean feat. Dr. Sean Harper is a university professor at the Rossier School of Education and the Marshall School of Business at the University of Southern California. This past spring, he was appointed university professor, a distinction bestowed only to 26 of USC's 4,700 full-time faculty members. Dr. Harper is also founder and executive director of the Race and Equity Center. He served as the 2020-2021 American Educational Research Association president and the 2016-2017 Association for the Study of Higher Education president. He was inducted into the National Academy of Education in 2021. Dr. Harper is an expert on diversity, equity, and inclusion in K-12 schools, colleges and universities, corporations, and other organizations. He has published 12 books, over 100 peer-reviewed journal articles and academic papers, and over 40 magazine and newspaper editorials. His research has been cited more than 19,000 times. Dr. Harper has been interviewed in hundreds of media outlets, including CNN, ESPN, NPR, New York Times. He has also testified twice to the United States House of Representatives and spoken at many White House and US Department of Education convenings. He served on President Barack Obama's My Brother's Keeper Advisory Council, on the National Education Policy Committee for the Biden-Harris campaign, and on California Governor Gavin Newsom's statewide task force on higher education, racial equity, and COVID-19 recovery. Dr. Harper is the recipient of more than $20 million in foundation grants, dozens of top honors in his academic fields, and 3 honorary doctorates, including one recently from Georgetown University. Professor Harper has repeatedly been recognized in Education Week as one of the 10 most influential scholars in the field of education. So this is a real honor and treat for all of us to get access to really one of the world's leading authorities on issues of education and equity, not just in K through 12 and in higher education, but in really our political and economic and social culture in the United States and globally. So without further ado, I want to introduce Dr. Sean Harper.
Thank you. Let me first start by thanking your President Emeritus, William Powers, for his leadership. It is such an honor to be included in the lineage, really, of amazing speakers that you've had in this series. I also would like to thank the clients.
Yes.
For their generosity and support of this series. I want to thank you for being here on a Thursday night of a home football game week. I know that getting here requires some twisting and turning for some of you. How do I know that? Because our Uber attempted to get us here, and yeah, there's a whole thing. But we're here, you're here, and I'm really thrilled. I hope I can make this worth all of our while this Thursday night. I know there are many fun things to do here in Austin. Look, we have a lot to get done, not a ton of time to do it. So let me just make sure that you all know why you are here. Except Shantae, I forgot. You told me what to do and I forgot. Everybody, let's give Shantae an amazing round of applause. I was going to say something about Shantae in a moment, and I still will. But Shantae, thank you for getting us started. All right, so just making sure that we all know why we're here and that you're indeed in the right classroom. We're going to be talking tonight about the attack on truth teaching. Teaching the truth about America's racial past and present, right? There's been a bit of a lopsided emphasis, I think. Look, I'm a huge appreciator of history and historians. One of my favorites is in the room. I'll tell you who in a moment. You'll never guess. But I also think that we have a real social responsibility to grapple with the racial realities of our present, and that we ought not wait until there is a tragic murder of an unarmed Black person and, you know, racial uprisings that subsequently ensue to then grapple with our racial realities of our present. So that's what we're doing here tonight. But I would be remiss if I did not take a moment to congratulate and thank my favorite historian. It was such an amazing privilege to have been introduced by you. All of those things that you said about me, I thought to myself repeatedly, it takes one to know one. You have such an incredibly gifted scholar here in Peniel Joseph. The University of Texas is so fortunate to have him. So thank you, not just for your amazing leadership of the center and all that you do here at UT, but also thank you for gifting us with this incredible book. Everybody, Peniel's book just came out this week. I'm about a third of the way into it. I'd be finished by now if I didn't keep like going back and like rereading things that I had just read, because I'm so mind blown by the brilliance that you packed in this amazing book. Everybody, please go and get the third reconstruction. It's very, 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 very good. So once again, thank you. And Shantae, thank you. I have a Shantae. at home. His name is Chase. Chase raves about Shantae. They've worked so hard to make tonight such a success. Last but not least, let me also very much shout out and appreciate my UT peeps. I got people here. They're in the College of Education. Victor Sines, my dear brother and friend, Rich Reddick, Liliana Garces, and Stella Flores are all longtime dear friends and colleagues of mine. And I'm just really glad to be here where they all work. All right, I'm gonna do a thing throughout our time together that you may find strange. So let's get it out of the way. I realize that I'm the only person here for the next 32 minutes talking with you, but occasionally, actually quite a lot, I'm likely to say we, us, and our. When I do that, it is an acknowledgement of the collective work that we do at the USC Race and Equity Center. The 28 full-time colleagues and professionals and experts there. Some of the work that I'm going to talk with you about tonight is mine and mine alone, but so much more of it is the work that we collectively do at the center. One of my center colleagues is here with us tonight, AJ Mata, who traveled all the way here from Los Angeles to be here. Not just for this lecture. He also happens to be an Alabama alum. He played football there. He's going to be cheering for the other team at Saturday's game, but nonetheless, AJ is here. He directs our Equity Coaching Academy. So I'm really grateful to AJ and our 26 other colleagues there at the center. All right, let's get into it. Truth teaching. All right, let me start. I wish I didn't have to waste our time in this way. I think this is a complete waste of time. Nonetheless, right? We have to play with the cards we've been dealt. I think that's how the phrase goes. So why don't we start by talking about these attacks on the teaching, the so-called teaching of critical race theory. But really, it's an attack on truth teaching. It's less about CRT. CRT is being used as a scapegoat, but it's really an attack on teaching America's school children and college students the truth about our racial past and present. So let's start here with 5 reactions. These are my reactions. They're my stances. I invite your disagreement with them, or you can confirm them, corroborate them, applaud them, or whatever during the conversation that will follow the lecture. But there are 5 reactions that I have. 5. 1, opponents of critical race theory are critiquing something they haven't read. There's a whole body of scholarship that's been produced by incredibly smart legal scholars. You see, critical race theory was born out of or in response to critical legal studies and the racelessness of critical legal studies. So folks like Derek Bell and Richard Delgado and Kimberly Crenshaw labor in the intellectual trenches to establish, a set of prisms to make sense of race in our judicial system and racism in our judicial system. Anybody who took the time to read what is actually critical race theory would know that it's not being taught to 3rd graders. Right, there have been now in more than 37, I think the number today is 37 states have either fully enacted bans on the teaching of critical race theory in K-12 schools, or there are proposed bans that are up for votes and legislative action. Second, opponents are conflating anything and everything that has to do with social justice with critical race theory. For example, on an NBC News segment about this, there was a white mother who was very upset that her daughter, who was in elementary school, came home and she said, "Mom, what are my pronouns?" And the mother was very upset that they were teaching about pronouns in her daughter's elementary school. That ain't critical race theory. But she misunderstood it to be, see, this is part of the critical race theory project. No, actually, it is not. Except for that one tenet in critical race theory that acknowledges that the attempts to eliminate racial oppression and racial suffering also necessitates a care for other forms of oppression, like sexism, like heterosexism, like transphobia, and so on. I don't know, like maybe she like read like really deeply and that was the conclusion that she was reaching. That see, this is CRT after all. No. Nicole Hannah-Jones is also such a gifted journalist, professor, writer, thinker, the architect of the 1619 Project, which very much aims to teach the truth, the full truth about America's racial history. Inasmuch as I love Nicole Hannah-Jones, what she does in the 1619 Project ain't critical race theory. It's the 1619 Project, but it's not CRT. CRT is a very particular thing. It's a different thing. All right, let me see if I can move a little faster. Here's the stance of mine. You can disagree with me. I welcome it. Students deserve the truth about America's racial past and present. We ought not lie to young people. Why? Because then they grow up to be liars. I'll say more about that later. My fourth stance here. CRT, despite what you've heard, does not teach students that all white people are bad or that all Black and Latinx persons are inferior to white people. First off, look, I'm going to get into some logic flaws here in a moment, but here's one logic flaw. Most of the architects of CRT, these amazing scholars, most of them are people of color. There's some white folks, but they're mostly people of color. Do you actually think that people of color are teaching other people of color that people of color are inferior to white people? Are you crazy? Like, no, like, it's just like not a thing. It's not a thing. But yet the opponents want to convince the world, the nation, really, that they're teaching third graders that if you're Black, you're less than. No, that's not happening. All right, here's one last one. I've done this, I don't know, like the first time I did it, it was somewhat playful, but then I got serious about it. I have now repeatedly called for the supplying of 50 names of K-12 teachers anywhere in the United States. They don't all have to be in the same school. They don't have to be in the same district. They don't have to be in the same state or even the same region of the country. Please find me 50 teachers who are teaching critical race theory in K-12 schools. Send me the list. Nobody has sent me the list. Why? Because it does not exist. It's not a thing. It's a boogeyman, right? All right, look, let me try to be like somewhat scholarly here and offer some logic flaws. There are at least three. One, 80% of K-12 teachers in America are white. The overwhelming majority of them are white women. So I guess the logic flaw here is that there are tons of woke white women who are teaching critical race theory to America's school children. Find me 50. All right, here's the next one. Educators avoid talking about race in school in part because they don't know how. Let me tell you where that has come from. It's come from my work with literally thousands of K-12 teachers. It may be millions at this point, but let's just say thousands all across the United States. In the work that I do, the professional learning work that my center colleagues and I do with K-12 educators, most school leaders and certainly most teachers tell us that we avoid talking about race with each other because we don't know how. We're afraid that the conversations are going to become explosive, that they're going to be divisive, that we're going to say the wrong thing. White leaders say, I'm terrified that I'm going to be accused of being a racist if I don't say the thing exactly how I meant for it to be said. So the logic flaw here is that adults who don't talk to each other about race because they don't know how are talking to children about race and racism. Not a thing. All right, here's one more. Teachers and school leaders alike, counselors, not just in K-12, but also in higher education. Okay, let me just pause for just a second. I know we've been talking about K-12 a lot. Let me just say a thing about higher ed. So higher ed has an open secret. It's not a good one. It's a long-standing open secret. The truth is, most professors didn't learn very much about teaching in their PhD programs. Somebody else now, I'm surprised by that. It continues to be the case, and it baffles me. In 2022, one could matriculate through an entire PhD program and not take a single required course on teaching. Sure, one may become a teaching assistant to a professor who doesn't teach all that well, and therefore learns how to not teach all that well. But really, in terms of the preparation for the professoriate, one could go through a whole PhD program at USC, where I teach, here at UT Austin, where we all are, and so on, without learning how to teach. So we're talking just plain old teaching, by the way. We're not talking about how to decolonize a curriculum, how to affirm racially, culturally, and linguistically diverse learners, how to, all the things, right, that qualify as, inclusive pedagogy. We're just talking plain old teaching. So listen, same thing in K-12, really. It continues to be the case in 2022 that in a teacher preparation program, one might have the obligatory multicultural education course. The problem with that course, I appreciate the people who teach it. This is not a critique on them, but they got a lot to do in that one course, right? So at best, one gets 2 weeks on race, but then we got to move on to class. Then we got to move on to ability and to gender, to socioeconomic status, all these things, right? So at best, even in the multicultural education course, there's the 1 or 2 weeks on race. So look, teachers and school leaders tell me and us that in our research at the center. So the logic flaw here is that educators are teaching something that they themselves never learn. Yeah, let me know how that goes. It will be the equivalent of me teaching physics. I've never taken a physics course. I've never touched, let alone read, a physics textbook. If you placed a physics textbook in my hand right now, I wouldn't know what to do with it. But imagine if I were here, standing before you this evening, attempting to teach you physics. It would be terrible. It'd be awful. All right, so then look. These attacks are ridiculous. They're about something else. They're certainly not about critical race theory, but the attacking is being done in the name of CRT. Let me tell you what I know to be true from my research, as well as from my practice. As Professor Joseph mentioned, I have the enormous privilege and responsibility of working with hundreds of educational institutions, corporations, government agencies, and so on. So when I work with those entities, I do so partly from a place of subject matter expertise, but also from a place of continuous learning. I continue to learn from those places. So in some ways, I feel like a practitioner who is still learning as I do these things, right? So look, let me talk with you quickly about our campus racial climate research at the center. We have been engaged for the past 18 years in conducting qualitative climate assessments at colleges and universities all across the United States. 59 of those colleges and universities in different geographic regions. It just occurred to me, I had somehow forgotten this because I tend to not call schools by their name. The very first campus racial climate study that I ever conducted was in 2004 here at UT Austin. No, don't clap. Well, you can. It was the start of something really, really great. So yes, thank you for that. I remember when I was reporting out my findings to the administrators here at that time, I remember making a bold declaration that all these years later, maybe, just maybe, I'm going to take back. I said at the time, this is the most racist place I've been, which was true at the time, based on the data that were given to me through the interviews that I conducted with students of color and white students alike. You see, what made me say such a thing was in my focus group interviews with Black students. I can't remember now how many focus groups we're talking about, but let's say there were 10, just with Black students. In every one of those focus groups, Black students talked about being called the N-word by a white person here at UT in 2004. We're not talking 1954, 2004. So, you know, the hearing about those kinds of experiences compelled me to say to the administrators, yeah, this is the most racist place I've been. All right, look, I didn't plan to talk about that tonight. But yeah, so there have been 58 others since my time here with you. All right, that work typically entails bringing a team of researchers to spend 3 to 4 days on the campus doing racially homogeneous focus group interviews. Sometimes college presidents and provosts will call us to assess the racial climate just for students. Other times, just for employees. Only like 2 or 3 times have we very foolishly taken on students, faculty, and staff all in one climate assessment. When I say racially homogeneous, I mean that we have several focus groups that are just with Indigenous students, several just with Asian American and Pacific Islander students, several just with Latinx and Hispanic students, several with Black students, several with multiracial students, and always several with white people, white students, or white employees, depending on the focus. We've conducted in-person interviews. I got to update this number, I just realized. We've conducted in-person interviews now with more than 4,000 faculty and staff members and administrators at colleges and universities all across the country. Perhaps more impressively, we've conducted in-person interviews with more than 10,000 undergraduate students at universities and colleges. As you might imagine, given this research and the reputation that we've amassed for conducting it qualitatively, let's just say 2016 through the start of the pandemic was a very high demand time for us, as the racial climate and the racial temperature of the broader nation had a spillover onto college and university campuses. So lots of very stressed out college presidents and VPs and provosts, were calling, asking, how fast can you and a team of researchers come to our university to assess the campus climate? To be honest with you, the demand outpaced our ability to be as helpful to as many institutions as we could. So here's what we did. We took all that we had learned qualitatively through those focus groups and the interviews over all of those years. We took those findings and we used it to inform the design and the construct of what we now call the National Assessment of Collegiate Campus Climates. It's the center's quantitative survey. In its first year, we administered the NAC at more than a half 500,000 college students all across the country. By the end of last semester, the NAC had been administered now to more than 2 million college students. Look, I shared with you the qualitative approach and these numbers about the NAC unapologetically to just like further establish academic legitimacy and credibility here for the things I'm going to say to you. Over the years, Dag, I have a UT story that I tell, but I never attribute it to UT. But I'm just gonna sit down, I'm gonna tell it to you now, actually, because we're here. Oh, I did not make these connections before now. So there's a white guy who grew up on a ranch here in Texas, whom I interviewed during my time here in 2004. This student was so frustrated. In fact, at one point, he started crying in the interview. He was frustrated because he explained to me that in the place where he was from, he grew up on a ranch, not a lot of people in his neighborhood, in his community. Everybody that he knew was white. His family, the people he went to church with, the people he went to school with. Only white people. He explained that his only exposure to people of color was on television. But he knew, given his career aspirations, I forgot what they were, but given his career aspirations, he knew that he had to learn more about people who were different from himself. So he talked about his college selection process and how he got all of these brochures in the mail. We were still mailing things at the time. He got all these brochures in the mail, and he was so seduced by the brochure from UT Austin because it was so decidedly multicultural, multiracial. There was all of this stuff in it about diversity and preparing students for citizenship and a diverse democracy and all these things. He was consuming this as a 16, 17-year-old. And he said, that's why I picked UT. That's the experience that I wanted to have, the one that was promised in the brochure. Well, at the time that I interviewed him, he, I think, was a rising senior. He was a rising senior. So he had had enough experience here at the point. And he was like, I'm just so frustrated because I've not gotten that experience, either inside or outside of the classroom here. I feel like, in fact, that the onus is all on me to figure out how to navigate this large place and find those experiences. He's like, I'm inexperienced at this. I'm white. I'm scared. I don't know how to do it. I thought they were going to teach me how to do it. And he was just really frustrated. You know, that story from 2004 has been corroborated time and time and time and time again on the campuses where we conducted the qualitative climate assessments, but also corroborated through these quantitative survey results. There's a whole section on the NAC in which we ask students where and what they learn about race. College students are saying, we're not really learning about race, really. So yeah, this whole that we're teaching white people to, Shante just put up a 10-minute thing. That's hilarious. All right, let me move faster. Shante, I want to shape yours and everybody else's expectations appropriately. It probably isn't going to be 10 minutes, but I will move faster. Okay, all right. Let me go faster though. So that's what I'm learning through my research. Let me tell you what I'm learning through my practice. At the USC Race and Equity Center, we work with lots of K-12 schools and districts, including our own, the Los Angeles Unified School District, the nation's second largest public K-12 school district. There was an article in Education Week in November 2019 announcing that principals in LAUSD were going to get specialized training to tackle racial inequities in their school. And we were going to be the ones doing that training. So here's what subsequently happened. We created an academy for 80 principals. The first one was for 80 principals all across the district. We, 6 months later, created a second academy for what the LAUSD calls Community of Schools Administrators. These are like area superintendents, 40 of those. In both of the series, we offered 10 professional learning sessions, each on a different race-focused or racial equity-focused topic, each lasting 3 hours. Every principal and COSA identified a strategic opportunity in his, her, or their school to improve racial equity. And we developed with them these strategic racial equity projects and gave them lots of coaching and feedback on the development of those projects and those plans. And we're continuing to study and track the implementation of those plans. Yep, we did an in-person kickoff on the USC campus on March 5th, 2020. All these people were there. It very likely was a super spreader. It was literally exactly a week before we shut down everything. But it sure was a great time with all of these principals at the in-person kickoff. In addition to the work with LAUSD, we also are working with the Inglewood Unified School District, another district there in LA. Not just with principals, but literally with every educator, every teacher, staff member, school leader across the entire district. And we do a monthly professional learning series for every employee in which we teach them things that they never learned anywhere else in their educational or professional upbringing about how to do racial equity, how to solve racial problems, how to talk about race, so on and so forth. Look, I raise these examples of the LAUSD and Inglewood to say that one of the things that we have certainly learned from these educators is that they don't know how to do this stuff. They're very honest with us that thank God that you came along because we were just kind of faking it while we were sort of going along. We never learned these things in our teacher preparation or in our principal certification program. So really, I think I could say with the highest degree of confidence that these folks ain't teaching CRT and that kind of stuff because they don't even know how to do the fundamentals. All right, look, I'm gonna go faster. We have these 2 higher ed alliances that we've created. One is for 68 community colleges across the state of California. Another is for 71 liberal arts colleges all across the United States. And once a month, we bring separately in those 2 alliances. Oh, wait, it just occurred to me that we have a third alliance here in Texas. It's in Houston with 13 colleges and universities in Houston that we bring together for a live virtual professional learning series on racial equity. Same thing as we see in the K-12 series and professional learning work. These higher ed faculty members and leaders, we never got a chance to rehearse the kinds of things that we're rehearsing here. So there's a lot of mishandling of race, and they're actually honest about it. We surveyed them anonymously throughout these professional learning experiences, and folks are really honest. They're like, yeah, no, we don't know what we're doing. So thank you. All right, lastly, as Peniel mentioned, I'm a professor in 2 schools at USC, education and business. Here's just a recent snapshot of some of the companies that I've had the good fortune and pleasure of working with recently. Over the course of my career, I've now worked with more than 400 companies, agencies, firms, and institutions. These are just some of them. The point here, right, is that many companies have significant DEI problems, broadly, diversity, equity, and inclusion problems, and certainly lots of racial problems, racial inequities, the underrepresentation of people of color in leadership roles, right? Lawsuits for racial discrimination. It's a lot of problems in corporations. Why? Because the people who lead them were never taught how to lead on equity broadly, on DEI, certainly not on race. I can say that declaratively All right, so Shantae, here's where the 10 minutes begins. Let's do in these last 10 minutes, because I do want to have a conversation with Peniel and with you. What are the consequences to our democracy? And what do we do about it, right? What must we do? This isn't a can or a should. I feel strongly about what we must do. So look, this is true. Talking about teaching the truth about America's racial history, this is true. Only 8% of high school seniors can identify slavery as the central cause of the Civil War. 8%. It's not their fault that they're that miseducated. They have been miseducated by us. I'd love to see the college data on this. I'm going to go out on a serious limb here and predict that the number can't be higher than 18% for college graduates. It can't be. Can't be. Why would I say such a thing? I know you all are like, wait a minute, his academic credibility is like very quickly eroding. Why would I say such a thing, make such a prediction? In our campus racial climate research over all these years, students of color and white students alike tell us unless they slip and fall into an ethnic studies course or into a sociology of race course, one really could go through 4, 5, or 6 years of undergraduate study without ever having a conversation or learning much about race at all. So these high school seniors really can graduate as college seniors without knowing much more. Okay, well then what are the consequences, right, for our democracy? Well, in the interest of time, I'm gonna pick just one field. Really, there are implications for all the fields as we think about a university and the role of a university in preparing people for work and leadership across the professions. But I'm gonna pick one profession. Here, let's pick the one that Victor works in, my friend, education. What? There was a noose at school. A noose in a school in Palmdale. You see, these people that you see posing with the noose, they're teachers. They're teachers who work in this school. In case you're wondering, who took the picture? The principal. When the news broke about this, my PhD advisee, James Bridgeforth, you all should hire him. He's on the market. He's amazing. He's amazing. And he wants to be a professor. He's going to be a great professor. James and I co-wrote a piece that we published in EdWeek, and we explained why we weren't surprised to see teachers smiling and posing with a noose. Before I move forward with telling you why we weren't surprised, in case you're wondering, well, where in the Palmdale, Mississippi is this? Where is Palmdale, where teachers were smiling and posing with the noose in a picture that the principal took? Palmdale is in Los Angeles County, California, where I live. Not Mississippi, not Arkansas, not Georgia, where I'm from. Born and raised, California. You know, you all have all sorts of stereotypes about California and Californians. They're so liberal and so open-minded and so progressive, like surely something like this would never happen in California. What makes Texas immune or exempt from such a thing happening among teachers, right? Okay, so James and I said we weren't surprised. Why? Well, because James, I was gonna say James and I, but the truth is, let me just like, we telling the truth tonight, it's truth teaching. James did the whole database. I normally say, oh, James and I have a database. James did the database. James put together a database that now has more than 500 racial incidents that have occurred in K-12 schools between 2015 and 2021. And these are all educator involved incidents. So it's not students being mean to each other and calling each other racial epithets. These are educator involved things. Okay, so here are just some of the things that James and I wrote about, some examples. In Hoover, Alabama, let's start in the South. A white teacher heard students who were Black listening to Tupac's song, Dear Mama. In case you haven't heard it, it's not a gangster rap song. It's a poem. It's a love note to his mother. A white teacher heard Black students listening to this and told them to turn the nigger tunes off. A teacher said that. Okay? In October 2018, news broke about a white principal in Cincinnati using the N-word in a staff meeting. And his colleagues told him in the staff meeting, bro, you should, don't say that. Like, please don't say that word. He was like, what's the big deal? And says the word, walks out of the meeting and interacts with some students and says it 3 more times. This is the principal. Okay. In October 2018, bless her heart, a white elementary school teacher in Iowa wore blackface to a Halloween party, and pictures of her surfaced online via social media. This is the teacher in blackface, her costume. Imagine the harm that must have done in terms of the breach of trust and the erosion of the relationship with Black colleagues, Black students, Black families, and Black community members to see this teacher in blackface on Halloween. Now, some people clapped back and said, hey, this was in her private life outside of school. It ain't got nothing to do with school. That was the whole sort of debate. Well, let's go to school, actually. Speaking of Halloween, I hope we all know and can agree that this is not okay. It's not okay. Now, some of you may disagree with me. I welcome disagreement, right? You have to say, well, maybe they're just embracing and celebrating a culture. Looks like a parody to me. In that same school, on that same day, at the same Halloween party for the school staff. By the way, these are not students, these are employees. There's a border wall, a makeshift border wall that says, "Make America Great Again." Well, they are teaching at Middleton Heights Elementary School in Idaho. I love that that was your question, where they're teaching. That was an important question. The question I often grapple with is, where were these folks miseducated? What university underprepared, or universities underprepared them, right? Which school of education faculty members, or there's an analogous version of this that also happens in the work that you prepare people to do here at the LBJ school for sure, right? Who were the faculty members who underprepared these folks and sent them into their industries, thinking that these things are okay? All right, here's just 2 more. January 2019, a white teacher in Carmichael, California. This is not Halloween. She dresses in blackface for a lesson at school. The school deemed it poor judgment. The teacher was like, wait, no, I wasn't being racist. You don't understand. You see, I was teaching a lesson about Black history and Black culture, and I wanted to embody the lesson and connect with the students. So reportedly, her intentions were good. She wanted to, I guess maybe she misunderstood what Gloria Ladson-Billings meant by culturally responsive pedagogy. But I think she was trying to be responsive to the diverse learners by looking like them and embodying the lesson. By blackening her face, she looked ridiculous. All right, here's the last one. 2019, Westchester, New York. A teacher singled out Black students and cast them as slaves in a mock auction as part of a social studies lesson. The teacher told Black kids, get up here, y'all are the slaves. The rest of you are the enslavers. Let's start the bid. Now, I know that, let me not take for granted that everybody, knows New York State all that well. I know that some of you must be like, that must be like in some rural part of New York, Westchester. It must be in upstate New York. No, Westchester is 15 miles from Manhattan. Okay, what do we do with these last 9 minutes that Shantae has given us? No, it's not gonna be 9 minutes, I'm just playing. I'm just joking. All right, so what do? We have to engage in what I call public teaching. I went to public schools all my life, from K-12 through PhD. So sure, there is a serious role for public universities like yours. You ought to think of it, right, as a public responsibility. But I also think of it as our responsibility as citizens, even beyond the university, to engage in public teaching. One of the things that I'm so tickled by right now, I just love it. It's a whole rabbit hole for me. There is a group on TikTok. As you can see, they've gotten more than 29 million likes. They call themselves the Black Menaces. Inside Higher Ed wrote an article about them 2 weeks ago. It's these college students who are Black, who go around and they interview their white, mostly white, schoolmates, college students. And they ask them questions like, can you tell me what Bloody Sunday is? What do you know about Bloody Sunday? And it's like, crickets. These white kids are like, I've never heard of that. And then they'll ask them about other historical moments. There's this one, actually not funny, where they were interviewing white students on the spot. Do you know what Trayvon Martin is? And they're like, no, I've never heard of that. Is that a student here? Does he go here? In one of the videos, I thought there was hope. There's this white guy who said, yes, I know who Trayvon Martin is. He was shot and killed by the police, right? Close, but no, not close. So the interviewer said, no, actually, he was like, oh, that must be a different Trayvon. So I am, on the one hand, I'm horrified when I watch these things because I'm like, these are college students who don't know enough, nearly enough about our nation's racial past and present. But I sure am thankful for these genius Black students who are capturing it all on video and using TikTok to help us understand, right, that we have so much more work to do as educators. All right, what else must we do? Public teaching, what does it look like? Well, I was on the Dr. Phil show earlier this year. He's lovely. And the episode was about the teaching of critical race theory in schools. And I argued there, as I've argued to you, like, yeah, no, this is just like not a thing. There's this one Black guy who's on there. He is a very vocal opponent of CRT. He's a Black conservative opponent. He went to his school board and insisted that we ban critical race theory. So I wasn't trying to embarrass dude, like I wasn't. I could be petty at times, but I asked him, well, what is CRT have you read? Can you name for me specifically the authors? And he was like, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Then he started naming some people. I'm like, yeah, no, that's not them. Try again. Then I asked, he started saying something and he was like, that's right? I was like, no, that's wrong. The point here, right, is that we have to make space for people who are opposed to the teaching of America's racial past and present to say why they are opposed, and to meet their opposition with evidence, data, historical and contemporary accuracies. We don't have to be on the Dr. Phil show to do that. I argue that with all of this space and its resources, that a university has a responsibility to use this auditorium, as a matter of fact, as one such space to convene such conversations, to, counter the myths. One of the things that we did at the center is that we did a national watch party of that one episode of Dr. Phil. And then afterwards, there was a panel of experts who were able to deconstruct it and then, take on some of the myths and counter them. Here's another about public teaching. I have way too many jobs. One of those jobs, I am a writer for Forbes. I wrote a piece for Forbes. As you can see here, the title is "Your Company's DEI Training Isn't Critical Race Theory," so chill. No need to ban it. Don't go banning corporate DEI trainings. I assure you that it's not critical race theory. You could get access to the article. The QR code is there. You could also, I put a website there that will get you to it, uscrec.info/COT Forbes. The point here, though, is that we have to, as citizens, use our social media platforms, our digital media platforms, and whatever other communications resources that we have, again, to raise public consciousness about racial injustices, inequities, and so on, and to help people understand that, no, we're not doing critical race theory at the LBJ school, so please relax. But here's what we are doing. In a couple months, our center is launching a national campaign that we're calling the Truth Teaching Campaign. One of the things that we've discovered is that the opponents of critical race, the critical race theory flamethrowers, they have a very well-coordinated campaign. Those of us who know the truth don't have a well-coordinated campaign until we do. So we are launching a truth teaching campaign that will have all sorts of social and digital media assets. It will have old school campaign assets like buttons and posters and t-shirts and everything for parents and family members. Please teach my children the truth about America. Don't lie to my kids. It's going to be, part of it. For teachers, let me teach the truth, please. For teachers themselves, please teach me the truth. So that is a part of the public teaching responsibility. Look, here's 7 additional strategies. I'll try to do each of these in 30 seconds or less. One of the things that I love most especially about teaching or spending half of my faculty life in a business school is that case teaching is fairly common. I know that they do it here at McCombs. Certainly we do it at Marshall where I work. Using case studies and case vignettes are incredibly useful ways to teach, folks who are going to be, public policymakers and folks who are going to become elected officials and so on, helping them to understand situations that are real, how to deconstruct those situations, how to learn from them, how to anticipate them, how to get ahead of them. So I think that, there's a real responsibility, I think, among university educators to use real life cases to teach the truth and to teach and equip, professionals. Second, maybe we should formally assess what students know about America's racial past and present. Similar to the questions that the Black Menaces are asking on campuses across the country as they're spontaneously interviewing their white peers. Wouldn't we want to know that students who are graduating from here don't know who Barbara Jordan is? I bet there is at least one that's no idea who Barbara Jordan is. No idea. More than one. I'm a huge, huge fan of curricular mapping. It's a thing that we do at the center in our work with universities, where we help universities map in the curriculum where the teaching of race and racism is occurring. Spoiler alert, it's mostly the Black and Latino faculty who are teaching the things. Mostly, right? They also tend to not have tenure, okay, right? That's where it tends to happen. It also tends to be in the one multicultural course or the sociology of race course or whatever it is. So it's important to first map curricularly. That formal mapping of the curriculum is very eye-opening to department chairs, associate deans, and deans who come to realize that, yikes, one really could graduate from here and not have ever learned anything about Barbara Jordan, actually. I think it's important to survey students about their feelings of preparedness for work and leadership in a racially diverse democracy, in a racially diverse workplace, and to also understand through surveys what and where they're learning about race. Whether you do that using the National Assessment of Collegiate Campus Climates, I sure would like you to, but you don't have to. You could construct your own survey. It might not be, though, like as methodologically bulletproof as the NAC. But the point here, right, is that it's important to formally survey. I also think that we ought to survey alumni who are in the professions about their actual preparedness, not just their feelings of preparedness, but their actual. You graduated from the LBJ school 5 years ago. You work at a place now. How's that going for you as it pertains to the solving of racial problems, being able to talk comfortably and fluently about race and racism and so on? Did the LBJ school prepare you now, that you have 5 years to be in practice? Don't you want to know what they say? Like, even if it's good, even if they're like, yes, we learned all the things, like, you have a responsibility to know even that. Okay, 2 more. It's important to survey faculty to ascertain our skill. Certainly our comfort and discomforts about teaching about and talking about race, but also to ascertain our skill. It can't be just about feelings, because sometimes feelings fall along political lines, conservative and progressive lines, or conservative and liberal lines. I care less about the politicking of it all. I care more about the preparedness, like how skillful folks are. And lastly, yeah, we got to upskill faculty. That's a part of the responsibility of an academic school at a leading university. To like not just teach students, but teach the teachers who are teaching those students. That's not conceptual for me. With a grant from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, we've created a series in California for literally every faculty member at every university and college throughout the entire state of California that prepares teachers. We have a once a month series for them that's free, in which we teach those teacher preparation faculty members, how do you teach the truth about slavery and America's racial history? How do you cultivate relationships with families and communities of color? How do you eliminate racial disproportionality in school discipline? Our theory here is that they cannot teach aspiring teachers things that they don't know themselves. But the good news is that even though they're faculty members, some of them are tenured full professors in endowed chairs, it's not too late for them to learn. And we see it as our responsibility, as certainly as a center. Okay, I'm gonna stop there, and looks like we have 20 minutes for a really good conversation. Hey. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Dr. Harper. That was incredible. This is one of the most invigorating talks and evenings that I've ever had the pleasure to enjoy. I'm going to open this up. I'm just going to start with a question for you, really about us and what we're trying to do here at the University of Texas at Austin, and really in the state of
In the state of darkness.
in the state of Texas. Because so much of what you're talking about is very, very affirming because it's so practical, right?
Thank you.
It's so action oriented. And I think it covers multiple policy spheres. I think the folks that we try to teach here at the LBJ school are absolutely going to be in situations where they do need to be prepared to think about racial equity, even if that wasn't necessarily their policy bailiwick. So my first question to you, and then we'll open it up, is what can we do, as right here at the University of Texas? I try through the Center for the Study of Race and Democracy. I'm trying, I'm in there, trying to fight the good fight. But what can we do, especially with, I think I'm super impressed at the resources you've been able to raise and cultivate, the trust that you've been able to create in many, many different spheres in California, in Los Angeles, at USC. I think you're a blueprint and a model in so many different ways in terms of action-oriented equity, justice, diversity, inclusion, anti-racism. What can we do in a way to amplify our own efforts on this score? And I think our students want to know, but also people who are just part of the community want to know. When I give talks, people want to know what can I do?
Fight back. You can fight back with facts and evidence about what is and what is not happening here, what is and what is not happening elsewhere across the country. I sometimes find public universities to be paradoxical places. This is supposed to be a place that really values evidence and scholarship, right? I know this is going to sound a little harsh, but a lot of times when there are these coordinated campaigns, universities don't fight back with what we know to be true with evidence because it's just too political. And I understand, especially for you, your state capitol, your state house is literally right over there, right? But doesn't that uniquely poise you to actually really raise the consciousness of your state policymakers? Yeah, so that's one thing. You got to fight back with evidence. Another thing that you have to do, I think, is engage in strategic alliances with other policy schools, other places that prepare practitioners who will become legislators, elected officials, policymakers. You may wear yourself out if you attempt to do it entirely on your own, right? So I'm a big fan of alliances, especially university alliances, because if you think about the knowledge and the research that you have here, imagine if you combine that with the knowledge that we have at the Price School for Public Policy at USC and other policy schools, SPIA at Indiana University, my alma mater. I think there's some real potential there, lots of it.
All right, with the time.
Wait, I got one more. Sorry. You asked about resources. You do know that and I know that there are people who really care very deeply about these things, about our democracy. There are people who are fed up with racism and the miscarriage of justice. Some of those people are wealthy and they will give you money to advance the important work, certainly that is occurring through the center that you lead, but also other efforts here at the LBJ school. Don't get outspent by the opponents because we didn't ask or appeal to folks, wealthy people who want to advance our democracy and root out racism.
All right, I'm going to open this up. Anybody who has a question, just a question, not a comment, especially young people, students. Raise your hand. Shantae, can we, Is there an extra mic, Shante? Okay, great. Thank you. No, an extra one besides this one. So that extra. Right. And can you identify yourself? Tell us who you are, please. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lauren Cameron. I'm a student here at UT, and I'm a public relations major. So as a PR major, I know I came into this field specifically to change how the world views people of color, specifically Black people in the media. My question to you is, how do we change something as so strong as Black hatred? I mean, it's universal. It's all around the world. So how do we stop it, or how do we combat this issue?
Sure, love this question. You are right that anti-Blackness is global, by the way. Did you all see Beyonce's film?
Yes.
I Am King. What's the name of it? I forgot the actual name. Black is King. Black is King.
It's brilliant.
Brilliant, beautiful, stunning. It's shot on the continent of Africa. It offers such a stunning counter narrative to what Africa is, right? We have to be incredibly intentional about producing counter narratives. In the earliest chapters of my career, my scholarship focused on Black and Latino male success, mostly Black male success. It was really Victor here at UT Austin leading Project Males and his great research on Latino males. We worked together. But much of that work focused on producing anti-deficit narratives, not even producing them, just taking the time to actually seek them out, knowing that they existed. So I think we have to seek out success. We have to seek out beautiful images of Black love, joy, thriving, leadership, and so on, and be incredibly mindful about offsetting these very deficit, lopsided, racist mischaracterizations of our people. Because when folks only see that version of us, it only exacerbates and intensifies their implicit biases about who we are. So I would argue that that's yet another area in which we have a public social responsibility to, seek out these images, narratives, and so on, and make them public.
Right. Thank you. Another question. Right here. Okay. Great. And can you identify yourself, please? Thank you.
Hi, I'm Zatavia Hayes. I'm the president of the UT Urban Teachers Student Org, and these are my fellow officers.
Thank you for coming out. Thank you.
We're also part of a pre-service program here at UT. Is basically equipped with everything you're very passionate about: equity within the education system, racial disparities, not only here in Austin, Texas, but just throughout the world and throughout the United States. And I loved how you talked about collaborating with businesses and talking about public policy, and also working with superintendents and teachers throughout California, and also having to work with other schools and here in university, well, in Houston. But what is your team doing to basically reconstruct pre-service teaching programs, whether that's in California or here in Houston? Because I know that although UT produces many teachers through UTeach and bilingual, the bilingual student cohort, but we're probably the only there's 14 of us in total, the graduating class, that's actually going out in the field and being equipped with the tools to talk about racial disparities and race and critical race pedagogy. Sorry, I'm getting very nervous, and I'm getting a long question, but really just how can we help you or collaborate with you, or how can we just reconstruct all pre-service teacher programs, not only in Texas, but just like throughout the United States.
Yeah, I love this
Thank you.
question. Let me first appreciate and applaud the important work that you're doing and that you've committed yourselves to doing. We need more of you. So thank you for that. So that last thing that I talked about, and I was trying to hurry, that series that we have for the preparers of teachers. So they are the professors who teach pre-service teachers at colleges and universities throughout California. So we're teaching them because again, they can't teach you what they don't know and what they haven't learned. So that's a part of it. It can't be all of it, right? Because this is such an enormous project and wasteland, desert land. Like, what am I saying here? Not enough work has been done here. There's too much work to be done, but this is like at least our starting point. One other thing that we're doing out of that series is we're producing a set of practice briefs for pre-service teachers that gives them literally turn-by-turn directions on here are the things that you do. And they're not raceless. They're incredibly race salient. I would argue that we got to do that same thing in the preparation of students for other fields and professions, including the ones that you prepare here at the LBJ school. So I would say those are the two things that we're doing, at least in California. I'm hoping that we can scale nationally. Yeah, I wish there were more, but that's it.
All right, we have time for one more question. I'm going to be respectful of our.
What if
of
I'm
our
extra
time.
concise and we take two?
Okay, we'll take two right here and then right here. Yeah, that's right. You and then right here. And just a question, please, just so we're respectful of time.
Okay, I'm a proud UT graduate of education and history, so way to go, girls. My question is, on the slide that you said, don't take a picture of, the teach the truth, how can you get it to AISD? How can we put it and implement it in the classroom? I teach 7th grade history, and I really focus on, hey, this is big fat lie. This is what really happened.
Love this question. So the campaign is going to be national in scope. It's taking us several months to launch it because we don't want it to be raggedy and haphazard. We want it to be incredibly well-oiled, like a political campaign, right? So really, we fully expect the campaign materials and activities to reach Austin and to reach really every part of the US. So we're going to be working through teacher networks and just other national existing networks to get teachers and school leaders and others on board and involved in the campaign. So yeah, it's going to be a major, massive campaign. I'd be surprised, actually, given the resources that we're investing in it, if it doesn't make its way to Austin. I fully expect it to.
That's amazing. Thank you. So right here, last question. Can you identify yourself too, please, sir? Thank you. And then we'll close.
Thank you so much. My name is Omar Zubaydah. We drove from Dallas, Texas.
Thank you for that. Thank you.
I came from North Africa in 1976 to Austin, Texas. And now I reside in Dallas. You mentioned strategic partnership with other universities. We represent community-based organizations that actually does the work on the ground. We are members of an organization called Muslim Alliance for Black Lives. Do you see the value of having strategic partnerships, whether you or Dr. Joseph's, with organizations like ours to help us further the struggle and the fight that we are going through?
Absolutely. Absolutely. First off, thank you for driving from Dallas to be with us tonight. That means so much to me. Thank you. Absolutely. You know, one of the things that we sometimes fail to recognize and appreciate about, you know, citizens who lead community-based organizations is that they're citizens. These are the people, right? If we're in service of the people, we got to be in partnership with the people who know what the realities are in communities, who can help raise our consciousness. You see, the thing that I did not get to say tonight, and I'm so glad that we're concluding in this way. When I say teach the truth about America's racial past and present, we have amazing historians who help us understand the past. But it's folks like you who can help us understand more deeply the present, and not just the present that makes its way into catastrophic headlines, but also the everydayness of structural and systemic racism and how it ruins the lives of people of color in communities all across the country, how it ruins the lives of white folks who want to be good and do right, but have been denied the opportunity to know what that looks like and how to do it in practice. So yeah, absolutely. And I very intentionally included white folks in that because look, for better or worse, following the murders of Breonna Taylor and George Floyd, a lot of folks ran out, most of them white, many of them white. And they bought up all of my dear friend Ibram Kendi's books, How to Be Anti-Racist. They really wanted to know. Ibram gives some incredible advice and insights in the book on how to be anti-racist. The point here, right, is that there was a sudden sort of catching of a religion, right? Like it felt religious for like 3 weeks, right? For like 3 weeks. But there have been some community groups of white allies that continue to gather and organize and do work. We got to be in partnership with them too. Because my sense is that they probably have better access to the people that they represent than perhaps maybe Peniel and I do. I don't know. Yeah, but yes, the answer to your question is absolutely. We would fail in the project of responsibly teaching the truth about our racial present, for sure, if we're not in conversation and collaboration with community leaders.
All right, so I just want to close by really a sincere thank you, Shaun, for really all that you're doing. Around here, I often talk about building the beloved community, and the work that you're doing is really part of a narrative. I call it a narrative war, and you're practically giving us this different story about us, right? The work that you're doing in LA Unified, the work that you're doing in terms of corporate America, the work that you're doing with students and the NAC, the work that you do as a public speaker. It's incredibly motivational. It's incredibly inspirational. But you also show us how to think about policy in a very practical way, not just a theoretical way, and not just in a way that's about the way in which we usually do it, the way in which we usually do it, because we don't tackle these issues. And I think it's incredibly, incredibly transformative what you're doing and the way in which you're building up in this kind of service-oriented leadership, both at USC, but you're bringing and spreading this word like John the Baptist. I'm an old Baptist boy from New York City, and that's what John the Baptist did, where he spread the word, and it wasn't just about the church, right? It's the word. So incredibly grateful. I think this is incredibly affirming. And I think this is one of the best evenings that I've had as an intellectual, as a citizen. So I just want to really, really thank you deeply.
I thank you. Look, I know. Wait. I know you want to end. I know that was like your amazingly like beautiful ending. Can we talk about policy for just a second? Just a second.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
During the Obama presidency, I was a professor at the University of Pennsylvania. Given Penn's proximity, Philadelphia to DC, and given the work I do, like clockwork, every 3 weeks or so, I was on a train from Philly to DC to do one thing or another on the Hill. One of the things I did not know until I started making sort of regular appearances there, doing various things, is that the people that we see on TV who make the policy, who, you know, vote yay or nay, they often lack expertise. They're not the experts. They're barely informed. It's the 24-year-old policy staffer who does the work and the research. And I can't tell you the number of times that I've been in hearings and in other places where the staffer comes and tries to maybe not so discreetly slip the talking points and the data points to the congressperson. I haven't cussed at all tonight, and I'm not going to. There's a kid over here. That scares me. It scares me. Not because I'm ageist. I don't mean to suggest that a 24-year-old, staffer doesn't know what he or they are talking about or doing. But what scares me is that person probably just graduated from college or a master's program in which they learned far too little, perhaps nothing at all. Did I forget to mention that the overwhelming majority of them are white, right? Like, where they learn nothing really or too little about people who are different from themselves, and therefore the talking points and even the analyses that they perform and therefore provide to the policymaker is likely, perhaps inescapably, contaminated with all sorts of implicit biases and oversight and misunderstandings and stereotypes about various communities. And therefore, the policymaker goes and casts his, her, or their vote on something that could impact millions of people. That feels so reckless to me. It feels like such a threat to the advancement of racial justice and racial equity in our democracy. And I want more schools like this one to take that on as a real project, as a citizenship project.
We'll end it right there. We'll end it right there. Thank you so much. Okay. Thank you.